Look how the stars turn on. Look how the stars turn on. When I hold you close. When I hold you close. When I hold you close. The stars turn on.
Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 22 of the Press Box, in association with the unit. So the Cup started and ended for Dundalk on Friday night, and in this week's show we're going to reflect on the 2-1 defeat to Drogheda United, as well as looking ahead to this week's huge league fixture away to Bohemians. So the loss in Weavers Park was the first time in 14 years that Dundalk have gone out of the Cup at the first hurdle. But we're John Daly's side, creators of their own demise. You were up there, I suppose. Firstly, it was a brilliant thing to see that there was actually no issues or security issues in that sense is what I mean. But again, even sadly, horrendously hungover on Monday, I sat and watched the whole game back, and definitely didn't help the hangover. But yeah, they were back to the goalkeepers making mistakes, even the second goal. So, you know, talking about being creators of our own demise, I know you were there, but that's all I seen as well. Like, just desperate, stupid amateur defending again, costing us, and there we go, out of the Cup.
Yeah, like John Daly referenced it afterwards. I think he was honest enough. He said it was the worst performance since he came in. Hard to disagree with that. I think we, going to United or Weavers Park, whatever you want to call it, that it's going to be a bit of a battle. It's that sort of tight pitch, and they were up for a battle. We weren't. I think they came from it from the get-go. I think sometimes when you play a team back to back, I think it's often what you learn from it going into the following week. And Drogheda's changes, like I would have felt, and Ron, you were beside me for the game in Oriel the previous week, the league game, and I felt massive mistake by Kevin Doherty to play Andrew Quinn at right back, because it's not somewhere he's played there a few times. I've seen him. It's not somewhere he's overly confident with, and basically Ryan O'Kane roasted him, and particularly when Luke Cooney, who played a lot of the season at right back, and Alicia Ahui were on the pitch, two sort of ready-made right backs in midfield. So by putting Ahui in there, I think he massively, solidified that. They went to 5 at the back. They brought Ryan Brennan in for a bit of grit, experience and all that in midfield. And like straight away from the get-go, I think our kickoff, and Douglas James Taylor absolutely clatters Sean Keogh, and that kind of set the tempo of they're up for it. And I think a lot of our players went into their shells. Now there's an element of, and I hate having to reference referees every week, but like Robbie Bence did have a major penalty appeal on 3 minutes, which probably should have been given. I think the commentary team, who would be, let's be honest, pro Drogheda, if anything, agreed it should have been a penalty. And that, if that's given, it's a different game. I think the referee went on to have a really, really poor match. Now, that's no excuse. We were by far second best on the day, but little things like that go for you, don't go for you, and it's massive. But I was really disappointed with the effort, the energy, everything from the side basically throughout. And I thought John Daly looked at it for far too long, because like I made the point, I think, just updating Twitter on the night, I think it was like 70, like we're 1-0 down from the 16th minute. We had one watery shot from Jed Akiki into Luke Dennison. By the way, Luke Dennison making his debut, basically not tested. One sort of half attempt from distance that was sort of scuffed at him in the first half. And I don't think we registered a shot in the second half till the 79th minute, when Scott McGill, I think, put it in the housing estate behind one of the goals. So it's just not good enough. And how he looked at that for so long when it clearly wasn't working. We were getting outbossed in midfield. We were getting absolutely no joy out of the forward players, and yet I thought the changes were far, far too slow to happen. Now that said, I mean the goals. I mean, you go through the first one. I think it was a litany of errors where I think there was a corner or set piece or something, but anyway, it drops to Sean Keogh. I think this is where the initial problems lie. Drops to Sean Keogh, and instead of booting it out of play, putting the ball dead, he plays this little skittery ball down the line, which Luke Heaney picks up and is able to put back in the box. And it's not a great ball, but if Keogh puts that dead, like obviously look for an out ball if there's someone up you can play it to. There wasn't. So he plays this sort of nothing ball into space. Um, if it goes dead, the Drogheda centre halves, of which James Bulger is one, have to go back. They're no longer in your box. But because he plays it to Heaney, who kind of gets past Scott McGill a bit easy, they stay forward. They say, well, might get, a second ball here. And they do. Now, what emerged after that, I mean, if you let it in yourself in DKT Sport on a midweek night, you'd be really disappointed. It was shocking goalkeeping. Nearly, for me, should go down as an own goal because he practically carried it across his own goal line. He obviously, I can only presume, thought that it was going over or whatever, but got his angles all wrong. And it's an absolute car crash of a goal. Um, and the second one not much better. Now I will say, and this is where the referee comes in again. For me in all the world, I think we probably should have had two frees before they scored their second. Where firstly Jamie Gullins pulled down by Ahui, and somehow it goes the other way. But and then just a route one ball from the keeper up through. I think Anna Masahoon's taken out of it by James Taylor, who sort of throws himself at it and takes our tallest centre back out of it in the get go. But then again, just sloppiness where Mountney, bit of indecision. Don't think the keeper helped him because he kind of came but didn't come. Maybe if he's back on his line, it's a simple header back to him or whatever. He's probably waiting for the keeper to come. And Warren Davis, to be fair, like, bit of intuition, throws a leg at it and sticks it in. And at that stage, it's game over. I actually thought, we did have a bit of a push after that, maybe, and obviously Bobby Faulkner got the goal in stoppage time. But there was a point coming up to the 90-minute mark where I said, look, we could be here for another 2 weeks and we wouldn't score. So when we did get the one, it would have been an absolute probably daylight robbery to have got the second, but it was just a really, really poor night from start to finish. And sort of worrying, like, I'll talk about the maybe implications of going out in the cup in a while, but like just as a confidence thing. And then you see even today, Drogheda at home to, was it Wilton United in the next round, and you're thinking, with all due respect to Wilton, that's a game that you'd really fancy to win, particularly at home. And even with the other cup draw, like you've Shelbourne playing Galway, like two of the, I suppose, favourites on paper. Like we already knew Friday night, well, obviously one of the games was Sunday, but with Bows playing Rovers and Pats playing Derry, there was definitely two Premier Division teams going out. There's at least another one now that would be one of those teams you'd be tipping to get to the Aviva at this stage. So it was a great opportunity missed, but we just never showed up. And the disappointing thing too is it wasn't that Drogheda were brilliant or any, like they didn't have to do anything special to break us down, or there wasn't a moment of magic or anything. It was just really our dithering. I mean, we probably need to talk about the goalkeeping situation, unfortunately, but
but what do you do now? Like that's the thing. Like I mean, that's like to give some positives to Goddard as well. He did make some decent saves as well. So he did. And again, to go back to even the first game against Drogheda, like, so he put in a performance. So there was something there, but then to just do something as random and as like stupid and tie conceding as that, it's just one thing after another. It's like we just can't get it right. Like again, we've 4 keepers on the books now. You know what I mean? Like it's mental like that. Like now this lad's gonna stay in goal. There's no like we're playing Bowes, he'll be number one. But like because you can't like if we pull him now, we're back to square one, you know. But funny enough, of all
He's
the
definitely put
lads,
a target on his back though. Like I don't want to write off a goalkeeper for one mistake, right? And it was a mistake, right? Don't want to do that. Um, because do you know what? He can make a fool. He might be brilliant and save us and produce an absolutely outstanding performance in Daily Mount, akin to what Ed McGinty did, when Sligo won there recently. But my issue with this is, right, like, and not all of this is necessarily, say, John Daly's fault because it's been just a mad season and we had 5 people in the dugout between Stephen O'Donnell,
mm,
Brian Gartland, Noel King, Liam Burns, and now John Daly. So it's been absolute chaos. But and I would have felt this at the time too. So like a couple of seasons ago, we brought in your man Runar Hauge on loan from Hibs, and I'm thinking. I remember his first game, if I'm not mistaken, was ironically this stage of the cup. We beat Longford 4-0, I think. And he got the nod ahead of O'Kane, who was kind of coming up the ranks at that stage. And my thing with that was, and O'Kane, if you remember, actually a really decent finish to that 2022 season. And certainly for me anyway, was a better player in that 6-month period or whatever it was than Hauge. But, you know, O'Kane sort of maybe prior to that would have been playing, like when he first signed professional terms. If you're not getting in the team ahead of, say, Michael Duffy, who was there, well, you can't really have too much of an argument about that. But why are we bringing in these players on loan who are never going to be yours, who, you know, aren't maybe that much better than what you have? And this is, look, it's early days for Goddard, but what I mean by that is, there's no evidence to suggest, good, bad, or indifferent, that this guy is a ready-made keeper, ready to go into men's football, because he's simply, like, he's had a few loan spells at clubs that, they don't count as senior appearances because like, they're not league football, shall we say. His only senior sort of competitive game prior to coming to Dundalk was one match in the FA Cup for Marine FC, where they got beat 5-1. You can watch the highlights of that online if you wish. And I'd say he was shocking for the first, well, certainly for the second goal, got caught in no man's land. First goal beaten as near post, you'd have to be disappointed with. I wouldn't necessarily fault him for the others, but like, we're bringing in this guy who's clearly going to be learning on the job. And that's fine. Like, everyone has to start somewhere. But this is big boy football. We don't have time for lads to make mistakes. And listen, I know a veteran goalkeeper can make a mistake just as much as a young lad can. But at least a veteran keeper, like say Peter Cherry had been in goal the other night, at least he's a wealth of experience built up that it's a blip rather than this is just the norm. Because there's no evidence at all. Like, John Daly was in charge of Pats Ireland this season. They brought in a guy, Marcello Petaluga from Liverpool, who he must have collected press packets or something to get to Liverpool, because I don't know how he was good enough to be at Liverpool, because he certainly wasn't good enough to be at Pats, and that
yeah,
subsequently emerged. He was dropped by Daly and subsequently went back. The loan spell ended. And listen, I know sometimes you can have success. Like Yaros was obviously Liverpool to Pats a few years earlier and was, a great addition. But I think, for me, and I said it a few weeks ago, if you think you can get better, by all means do it. But the likes of Nathan Shepherd was available. And listen, I don't know if Nathan would have been interested or whatever, but I know for a fact, because I've looked into it, the question was never asked, did he want to come? And yeah, I get there was issues with representation and all that at the start of the season, but anyone who was there at that time is no longer at the club. So that wasn't a barrier. And this was a guy who could have come in. he at least has, and I'm not saying Nathan's always been perfect either,
I was
but
going to
he's
say
like
Nathan Sherwood made errors, like, and
he
again,
does, and every keeper
he's a
will, but
young keeper.
He's 80 odd games under his belt at a senior level, and he's also played with. He doesn't have to take that time to like who's Mayoa and who's Andy Boyle and who's he's played with a lot of these lads. He knows their names. He knows the club. He doesn't have to settle in the area because that's a big part of it too that we never think about. Like, how are you actually settling? Are you okay? Like when you're not training or playing, And um, for me, we gambled on a keeper. And listen, I hope he bounces back from it. It was a bad night at the office on Friday, but bringing in a lone keeper for a handful of games, for
I
if
completely
we had the
agree. I think there was
opportunity.
no point on wasting money on that man's salary when I have to say, is it Malloy, the young fella, came in,
Yeah,
did very well in
well,
my, and we also have Peter Cherry,
yeah,
who you're talking about experienced, maybe not as Matt Sharp, I will say that, so that's maybe a factor. But young Malloy came in, and also from chatting to somebody that had been at Dundalk's training for a few times, watching them, apparently he's like brilliant in the sense of roaring at lads, like, demanding things, demanding standards, is a very good trainer and shows the levels. Even when he played, he didn't make no mistakes. He didn't do that. And then
no,
all of a sudden, I get
he's
he's
the only
young.
he's the only of our keepers this season. Like so, Goddard already's made errors leading to goals. Monroe made mistakes leading to goals, and Shelby, when he was around, made mistakes leading to goals. Malloy's the only one who hasn't done that.
Yeah.
And look, listen. I'm not going to say I've seen a lot of Sean Malloy, but you're right. In the couple of games he played, he done absolutely nothing wrong. And like, there's less than a year between these two guys. It's not like you're bringing in,
Yeah,
maybe a 20,
experienced.
a
Yeah, yeah.
28-year-old keeper who, you know, let's be honest, 19 is young for a keeper, but so is 20. So, it's not like you're bringing in anyone like, actually, ironically, when Goddard made his debut for Dundalk, Malloy had played more senior matches than him.
Yeah.
So, if you discount, oh, okay, he's been at clubs like Blackburn, but it's under 18 football, under 23 football. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter who wins or loses. And when I talk about like implication, right? Listen, our ambition maybe shouldn't be to win the cup this year. It should be to maybe stay up in the league and all that. But your issue now is you've a lot of free weekends, and it's hard to build momentum. Or players would always tell you, like, if you have a bad result, you just want to get out again and put it right. It's why even we play a bit of golf badly most of the time, let's be honest. But like, when you have a bad sort of day or whatever, you nearly want to go to the range and just work on what you're doing and get it out of your system, sort of thing. But like, you've now big gaps, and there's financial elements to that too. So like, when I mentioned it's 2010 since we last went out the first hurdle, lost to Pats 1-0 in Oriel. But like, the downside of that now is, so if you take, say, September, looking ahead, we've only one home game now in the month of September. And between hosting Shells at Oriel on the 30th of August and the visit of Derry to Oriel on the 18th of October, there's just one home game in that 7 week spell. It's against Bows on the 27th of September. And like, in between, you've trips to the likes of Waterford, Sligo, Galway, where you're going for meals beforehand, etc. It's costly, and you've no income. And okay, right, you're not guaranteed a home draw in the cup, but you do get a percentage of the gates as well. And if we're not, maybe, we'll talk about the Bows game later, but say you lose the Bows, it's certainly not going to help attendances. Later in the season, like, you could get caught in a no man's land where you're already down, or you're just going to finish ninth, or like, it doesn't really mean anything. And that's like, let's be honest, like, because this is maybe papered over a little bit from time. The finances aren't good, and that's not going to help matters, because you're losing gates, but you're still paying wages.
Yeah.
And it's been this chaotic year. I had to look at it before we come on air, just because it was I was asking myself the question: how many players do you think we've used this season?
22.
Right. So in all competitions, right, and this includes the Leinster Senior Cup, and bear in mind the 20s come out for one of those games, we've used 50 players so far.
Jesus.
And that doesn't include Hayden Cann, who's yet to make his debut, or Peter Cherry, who's yet to play, even though he's technically registered. In the league now, we've used 33 players so far. And again, Cann and even A. Dervin, he came on the other night, but that was the Cup. They've still to make their league debuts. Like in 2022, not that long ago, we used 25 players, all competitions throughout the season. We're going to be 10 above that. Now, I know there's been a big turnover or whatever, but there's financial issues to that too. There's been probably, severance pay to managers who've since departed, etc. It's been a chaotic year, and then you go out of the cup at the first hurdle, and that does have implications for you. And look, that maybe isn't the player's concern, but it was just a bit half-hearted for me, and you'd have to wonder about, like, put it this way: if we perform, and I think to be fair to John Daly, he admitted it himself, if we perform like that in Dalymount on Friday night, we'll get turned over easily, because it was so subpar, it was so poor. And again, I hold criticism for him and his coaching team in it as well, because for me, I thought they looked at it for too long. We were losing certain battles. Like, all the evidence would suggest that Jamie Gullen is best with someone up top, and he was just isolated for basically the entire game. You even go back to probably his best performance for us, was that Pats game that we won away from home 3-2. He was up with Cameron Elliott that night, and uh, Drogheda went more direct, like, and to be fair, okay, Piero and James Taylor didn't get on the score sheet, but they caused us hassle. We like, they were more a threat than we were.
They had more chances, yeah.
With,
I said their keeper
without,
made good saves, like.
yeah, without being wonderful. They did, because I know Connor Kane had a bit of an effort and stuff like that. Maybe certain decisions didn't go our way. I thought the referee was awful for both teams, but like, there was another one where Ryan O'Kane gets in behind Hui at one point, and I haven't actually seen the replay of it, but what I would say is I don't see how the referee can take no action there, because O'Kane goes down, he's in behind his man, right? So it's either one of two things: it's either a foul or it's a dive, right? And I know not every time a player goes down it's a dive necessarily, but he's clearly appealed for a penalty. So even if he tripped over himself, he's at the very least trying to con the referee that he was fouled. You can't do nothing there. You either give the penalty or you book Ryan O'Kane.
Yeah.
Like, there was a lot of those, and I like simple things, like, there was one point the ball goes off O'Kane's knee and out for a throw, and we get the throw, and it's 3 yards away from Gavin Colfer, the fourth official. Like, just really, really frustrating stuff. Like, again, Jack Keeney nearly scores at the end after going through a Dervin, like, and no free out, like, mad stuff. That wasn't to blame for her cup exit, but like, you expect more, and you get the Benson decision on 3 minutes, maybe it's a different game, because I would always say, no matter what sort of level we're at in terms of good or bad performance, for me, it's one of the worst grounds in the league to be chasing a game in, because it's so tight and compact that it suits the team ahead to maybe shut up shop. And again, we didn't look for long periods like we were going to score. It was a bit of a freak goal in the end. I don't know what Dennison was doing, but again, another case of sort of bad goalkeeping, but that only sort of angers you more because he wasn't tested. for, the period prior to that. And we start putting balls in the box. I think, ironically, in the 96th minute or something, it was Goddard glancing wide from a Horgan delivery. And, it's amazing what you can do when you get ball in there. But we didn't do that. We didn't try and, as I say, it was crying out for a change earlier with maybe, Gullins only coming back from injury, to be fair, but he needed someone up top with him. And the game needed that change because what we started with clearly wasn't working. But for me anyway, I thought we just looked at it for too long.
Right. Well, before we do turn to Friday's trip to face Bohemians, we've had a number of questions and comments in from our listeners. And as always, they are brought to you by Malone Financial Services. So Kevin Mullen said, very disappointing display, and Drogheda ultimately gifted them the game, but most teams in the league are having their own struggles. Nobody seems consistent. Look at the money Pats have thrown at it since Kenny came in, and their form is worse than ours. Fair. Simon Canning said, disappointing performance, not too concerned about exiting the cup, but worried that we really struggle to break teams down and we seem toothless up front. We're a better team than Drogheda, but they are more likely to score. It's concerning considering our position. Better team than Drogheda, but yet they're more likely to score. So football's about scoring goals, so I wouldn't necessarily say we are a better team than Drogheda. Johnny Lynch said, unfortunately, worrying signs again, reminiscent of the start of the season. Still think we need to get a striker in, even on loan, to get us goals required. Patrick Muckian said, is Keith Ward coming home? And I'll just stop there, actually. So firstly, actually, I don't know if you know anything loan wise, probably as always, but I know obviously they've been sniffing around getting strikers, and obviously hard to come by. And also, I did see that myself that Wardy left, so I doubt he's coming home in that sense. But with any other strikers or any players coming in or out, actually, have you heard anything in that sense?
I haven't asked about Ward. I obviously seen it like everyone else today, just haven't had a chance to look into it. He's obviously going to be linked to us just because he's been here 3 times already, and all that. He'll probably be linked to the likes of Bowes as well. It just didn't work out for Michelle, to be fair. I think I'd only played two matches or something for them off the bench, but certainly wasn't involved. Look, if he does come back, he comes back, but he's not what we need. For me, I know I think it was Rory who's going to mention it next about, set pieces and stuff like that, and we definitely need to improve on our set pieces. I will agree with that, but the downside of signing players this time of the year is, most of them are getting up to speed. So if you take the likes of Bobby Faulkner, Dan Pike, etc., they're in effectively pre-season mode. And even though Wardy's in mid-season, he hasn't played enough minutes to, for me anyway, hit the ground running at his age, etc. Is he just a 10-minute off the bench man? And I'm not saying he can definitely have an impact in that way, but I mean, if you're saying, do we need to sign Keith Ward or do we need to sign a striker? Well, it's the latter. Now, did ask John Daly about it on Friday, and he says he's still trying. He says he thought he was close to a couple, but they fell through, and look, that can happen. It's going to be very difficult because, I mean, who's not looking for a striker right now in many ways? And like someone mentioned, was it Kevin mentioned Pat's there and the money they're spending? Like, Pats have struggled for goals this season. Like, I know they brought in, a few big name signings, Zach Elbisetti, the most recent, but like, you couldn't describe Rory Keating as a success there so far. They're coming up to Europe now. Like, hypothetically, if a striker's available and it's Pats or Dundalk, well, if European football at Pats, they could probably pay more, and that's the difficulty you're going to have. So we know what we need, but getting it is the problem. And every sort of passing day is a sort of, you're running out of time in terms of the window unless you're getting a free agent or something. But yeah, we can but hope. It's like deals are one of them where you might have no one lined up today, and there might be a deal done by this time tomorrow. But Yeah, his keep Ward coming home, I don't know, but and there's no respect to Wardy because he's a great lad and all that, but if we've one more to come in, I don't think we need an aging midfielder. I think we need someone up top.
Rory Gilson, and as you said poor performance, but not awful. I'll take that from where we were not so long ago. And he signed him a striker, although Gullum was given zero service, so not necessarily on him. I'd take a punt on Wardy just for a set pieces, horrendous floaty crap again. And to be fair, as you said, that like I get it, but
I'd
again,
agree on the floaty crap, and particularly Robbie Benson, like driving me mad because in a very experienced footballer and stuff like that, and he's playing these uh, like you need a bit of pace on balls to sort of attack them and make them difficult for teams. Like they're that slow into the box, they're easy to defend, and they're easy for keepers to come to. And I don't know. We need a plan B when it comes to set pieces. I think that based on the other night anyway.
and lastly, Killian M2 said, should Alan Reynolds step aside and let Skip take charge of Friday night? We do it for the banter. Where are we
Well,
now?
it
So
is one of
anyway,
the few grounds he actually won at Dundalk, so away from home. So maybe he could do that. But yeah, look, it's going to be good to see him back, I suppose. Like, listen, there's no ill feeling there, but uh, he's an assistant manager. It's not really
I
the
don't think
be
we
all
need to
and
be.
end all. You're not going head to head with him or anything like that.
Yeah, we don't need to be worrying about Stephen O'Donnell. Right, so before we will chat now about Friday's game at Daily Event, we're just going to hear from our sponsors, The Unit.
Today's episode is powered by The Unit, experts in building innovative products for the betting, iGaming, and sports industries. They're the brains behind building innovative products tailored for those who love the game as much as we do. From software that powers up the betting world to platforms that enhance how we engage with our favourite sports, The Unit is leading the charge. The Unit, a winning team that reminds me of the Kenny era Dundalk in their consistency and results. Proud sponsors of the Press Box podcast. Learn more at theunit.dev.
Right, well, we are travelling to Dalymount on Friday night, knowing that a win is going to see us move within a point of Bowes. Alan Reynolds' side haven't been in great form themselves of late. Properly poor, actually, but they did actually get a good 1-0 win over their rivals, Shamrock Rovers, in the FAI Cup on Friday. Yeah, it was funny. I know we were only talking about this earlier, actually. Like, of all teams, and I actually don't think anybody bar Bowes I'd have confidence about playing. And I know that they did beat Rovers, and I didn't see any of the game, but like, a cup, like they've been awful, and I've seen some of their stuff on LOITV and stuff like so. I think there is an opportunity here. I think if we bring in the form, as we said, from our Drogheda game, and not put the effort in and have the desire and make better decisions even, and not have lunacy decisions from our goalkeeper, we are in it. But ultimately as well, if we win, as you say, we go to a point. If we lose, it goes to 7 with 1 or 2 games in hand as well. And, so it's a huge game. We can't lose. A draw, we'll see. But ultimately, this is where I'm talking with people saying, oh, well, we can push. At some stage, we actually start having to do that. And a great win 2 weeks ago against Drogheda, but sorry, beating a part-time side that are essentially bottom of the league, expected to go down. That's not where our season's going to change. So this is a big game. Bowes, again, have invested very well in theory. They'll have a better squad against us. But again, if we go in with half the attitude that we had against Drogheda in the Cup, we lose. And then so many other factors. And again, I'm very interested in the finances. And I do believe, so again, if we go 7 behind them, they win one game that we're 10, we're done. We're going to come probably ninth. I can't see us being surpassed by Drogheda, so we'll probably come ninth. We're in that no man's land, as you say. Attendances fall, form potentially falls, and then we're going into a playoff against a form team, and then God knows what happens. So I genuinely, I put this as such a massive game now. This is one that, like, it's kind of 3 points or bust, because Yes, if we get a draw, grand. But if we want to get 8, it has to start now.
Yeah, well, look, they are the team immediately above us, and I'd agree with you. We can't afford to lose it if we want to get out of. Look, we can't stop looking over our shoulders either, because it is like the gap with Drogheda could be down to 2 points come Friday night. But I think if we are to show the ambition of getting 7 to 8, whatever, but like out of that playoff spot, you have to go to Dalymount and win, as far as I'm concerned. At the very least, you can't lose it. Now their games in hand, they're not easy ones. They're Rovers and Shells, but um, you know, that doesn't mean they won't take points in them. It will. Look, you'd rather have the points on the board than the games in hand, particularly when you're struggling for form. Now, how big will the cup win be for their confidence? It was a penalty, but sometimes you just need that. You'd rather be them going into Friday night than us at the moment, because I think we had more concern and they had more reason to be optimistic. They obviously have added around about half a dozen players, but so maybe their form is a bit of a, it doesn't reflect maybe the team that will necessarily play Friday night, but they have been in poor form. They haven't, like, if you count the league, they haven't won in 7 league matches, stretching back to their 3-0 win away to Sligo on the 17th of May. In between, they've lost 3 and drawn 3. That win over Sligo is actually their only league win in their last 11 since losing to us in Oriel at the end of April. Amazingly, and Dalymount would have always been like deemed a tough place to go, but they've the worst points return at home than any team in the Premier Division. 12 points taken from 11 matches so far. I think that, even their that's 2 worse than Drogheda, 5 worse than us at Oriel. Only ourselves at Oriel with 8 have scored fewer than their 10, and only Drogheda with 17 have conceded more than their 14 at home. So it hasn't been a good spot, but like that, you'd have to be impressed with some of their signings. Like, they brought in Dawson Devoy, who I believe was I didn't see the game now, but I believe was very good from talking to a few people who did watch it or were at it. I believe it was very good against Rovers the other day. They brought in Alex Grieve, who's, New Zealand, played with St Mirren. Ross Tierney, who's been there before. Liam Smith, another experienced player. Lee Kavanagh came from Brighton, and Archie Meekison, who was at one of Dundee, might have been Dundee United. So like, that could be massive in terms of turning around their season. I think, we need to change it up a bit post Drogheda. I'd like to see Dervin come in from the start, because for me, I think we need that energy and bite in midfield, particularly with Paul Doyle out at the moment, because he had been actually performing well under John Daly. I think Dan Pike needs to come in. He's looked good in his couple of cameos, and potentially a couple of changes on the wing, or maybe even go with those 2 up front, because I think, like, what's the saying about trying the same thing again, expecting different results is insanity. Like, but Jamie Gullen up top on his own, there's no evidence that suggests it's going to work on Friday, when it didn't work, for most of the season up until now. What does need to change, both in terms of sort of Friday and between now and the end of the season, is we can't keep, if we're going to get out of this, we can't keep relying on our home form. Like, we've only 1 win away from home all season. The 3-2 against Pats, and was it 5 points away from home? From 12 matches, it's deplorable. Or, now granted, a lot of this is sort of pre John Daly, but like, our Dublin record absolutely stinks. I think of the last 26 matches in Dublin, we've won just 4. The Pats game, 2 against UCD, who are no longer in the Premier Division, and won against Bows in nearly 2 years ago now, August 2022, courtesy of a Ty Grine own goal. So when you factor in of 26 visits to the capital, and bear in mind, up until this season, we'd 5 teams from Dublin in the league, to win 4, draw 6 and lose 16, it's relegation form. And, for certainly a couple of those seasons, we weren't battling relegation. So that needs to change. We've also struggled massively to score away from home. I know we've technically more away goals this season, but it's been a real struggle to score away from home. And we've certainly been more porous defensively on our travels as well. There's been a lot of, I know, look, Felix Goddard's getting a bit of a hard time this week, but there's been a lot of that sort of stuff, particularly on the road where, for whatever reason, psychological, whatever it is, and look, a lot of the personnel has changed, as I mentioned. We've used an awful lot of players this season, but the gaffes have generally come away from Oriel Park, bar that maybe Sligo game that we all want to forget. And at some point, if you're going to go on a run, or not even a run, but just start picking up the odd result here and there that's going to get you out of the danger, and for good. Because, as I say, regardless of catching Bows or Pats or anyone else, Drogheda are by no means out of it yet, in terms of they're not lying down and accepting 10th. But at some point we do need to start, and maybe it's not winning every week, but maybe it's taking 5 points from 9 or something, and just being difficult to beat, and picking up the odd win. And certainly we weren't difficult to beat. I know it was only 2-1, but we weren't difficult to beat on Friday night, so it has to be an awful lot better than that.
Yeah, and ultimately I think you made a fair point. As I say, consistent wins have to start coming. Yes, we did win our last game, but again, you can only discuss it so long. It's showtime. So we definitely want to see a positive and a win, not fucking draws and stuff like that. It just needs to get going, or else we're in huge
draws
trouble.
are fine in certain, if you look,
not now, man, not now.
No, I wouldn't agree with you. Yeah, I wouldn't agree. We probably need to beat both. If we're going to catch them, we need to beat them. Let's be honest. But there's other games coming up where maybe I think one of our next trips is Derry away. You probably take a point in the Brandywell. Let's be honest. But every game is different, and you treat it on its merits or whatever. But certainly, this is a game. I think someone asked about Stephen O'Donnell earlier. Stephen O'Donnell was in charge. I give us no hope of winning this, because we just didn't show up for Dublin matches under him. It's far too early to sort of say that under John Daly, because I think he's only played 2 in Dublin, won 1, lost 1. But he, by his own admission, I think he admitted it wasn't good enough. I think he used the word worrying. He definitely said it was the worst the team have been since he came in. And right, you'll not be good every week. Doesn't matter who you are, Real Madrid or someone. You'll have your bad week or whatever. That's a given. But how does he now arrest that and change that and make sure that that's not the case on Friday?
Yeah,
because like that, I know we're saying you can't lose this, but if you do the players' heads go down then? And that's the, okay, maybe even if that is 8th place gone or above, you still can't take your eye off 10th, because that's not, we might be 5 points clear, but Drogheda were 6 points clear when they beat us the last time in May, and that didn't last too long either. So there's a lot of football still to be played. So it's a big one Friday, no doubt.
Right, well, we also did want to say congrats to our men's under-20 academy player, Aidan Russell Vargas, who actually made his debut for the Dominican Republic in their under-20 championship opener against El Salvador on Saturday evening. The 18-year-old from Lusk qualifies for the country through his mum, Elba, and is part of the 21-man squad that's currently in action at the tournament in Mexico. Unfortunately, they lost 1-0, but face Canada on Wednesday and Honduras this Saturday. I know you were saying about Paul Doyle, so you have down here as well that he's out for 6 to 8 weeks, which doesn't help, but it also maybe gives other people opportunities to step up. But Dundalk also actually announced a new long-term partnership with Catapult, the global leader in elite sports performance analytics. The 4-year deal, which is going to cover the club's first team and academy players, are going to see Dundalk FC leverage Catapult's in-house sports scientists and best-in-class technology to track and improve team performance. The club are also currently seeking people to compete or to complete their community climate captain survey, and you can do so on Dundalk FC if you go onto the website. Before we do go, we will let you, Jimmy, take people through the underage roundup in association, as always, with Jerry McNamee Consultants.
Yeah, so on Saturday, the men's under-15s were 3-2 winners at home to Sligo Rovers, with TJ Malloy Murray, Ryan Campbell and Jordan Facella scoring the goals, which made it 3 wins from 3 in this phase of the men's under-15 league Tier 2. The men's under-14s also had a 3-1 win over Longford Town in the Eddie Wallace Cup on Sunday, with goals from Alex Karansika, Mason Molyneux and Killian Hughes. Unfortunately, the women's under-19s and the men's under-17s both lost to Finn Harps on Sunday. The Donegal side were 3-2 winners in Ballybuffet in the women's under-19 Cup, with Chloe Ebazim and Ella McKenna scoring the goals for Jason McConville's side. Harps also won 2-1 against the men's under-17s at Oriel, despite Stephen Brady briefly equalising before half-time. This Saturday, the men's under-20s are in action in the Enda McGuill Cup at home to UCD at 1:30, while the women's under-17s host Finn Harps at 5. The under-15s also travel to face Shelburne in the Michael Hayes Cup at 12 noon. And on Sunday, the women's under-17s host DLR Waves at 5 in Oriel, while the men's under-17s travel to face Bray Wanderers in the Mark Farron Cup at 2.
Right, well, that is it for this week on the Press Box. We're going to thank again our main sponsors, the unit, as well as our associate sponsors, Player Fit, Jerry McNamee Consultants, and Malone Financial Services. If you're listening on YouTube, again, try subscribe to the channel and like or comment on the video. And they actually each week are sponsored by Mullins on the Castletown Road. So again, after a disappointing weekend, we're going to hope we'll have a little more to cheer about leaving Dalymount on this Friday. We'll talk to you next week.
Look how the stars turn on.